Debo against Jalen Ramsey. I don't know if we're going to see it. A lot of different matchups that'll be different this time around. And so let's dive into that with the voice of the Rams who joins us now on Willard and Dibs, brought to you by Fremont Bank, full-service banking, no compromises. That's JB Long. Hey, brother, what's going on?
Thanks for the invitation. Good to be back. Twice this month and, 5 times in the last 12 months this rivalry's been teed up.
Yep, and only in the playoffs do the Rams win. So we already know the outcome this weekend. Is that correct?
I would say that painful though it might be, if you offered Rams fans a contract which says they have to take one more on the chin Sunday, but they would be guaranteed a victorious rematch in the playoffs, I think they would take the medicine. Yeah, I really do.
What's the state of this Rams team right now? It seems like from an injury standpoint, they're really beleaguered and in a tough spot. Are they still suffering through a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover?
Well, they have been beleaguered. For instance, beg your pardon, on Sunday they'll start their 7th consecutive different offensive line combination. But I think coming off the bye, they are as healthy as they've been since training camp, and that's kind of the silver lining. Most importantly, they're starting their scheduled starting center, Brian Allen, as opposed to an undrafted free agent, Jeremiah Colonna from San Jose State, who was applying to be in the San Diego police force the last time they called upon him, and he played the majority of that Week 4 game against the 49ers vaunted defensive front. So that's one big one, some help in the secondary, and then out wide, Van Jefferson, who was scheduled to be part of their starting receiving trio, will make his season debut, it sounds like, on Sunday. So trending in the right direction coming off their bye, but you're right. To this point, 3-3 in large part because of the injury disruption.
JB, it is JB Long, voice of the Rams, with us here, Willard and Dibs. I'd love your perspective on what sounds like it was a cool 49er Ram game that didn't happen on the field. It happened on the phone 2 weeks ago when both of them tried to go get Christian McCaffrey. What do you think the Rams offered, and what's sort of been their thought process in that the rivals got him?
Yeah, out here it sounds like from all the reporting, and it's interesting that the Rams did have kind of a price ceiling and remain disciplined, not going any further than their budget would allow. But I think it's more than just representative or kind of similar to what the Rams did last year in going all in, that the 49ers have kind of pushed their chips to the center of the table and said that Christian McCaffrey is the piece that can get them to where they're trying to go. We'll see if it plays out that way. I mean, I think he's a more than adequate substitution for Debo for this particular game, if it is a one-for-one kind of substitution. But more long-term, I kind of think of what's a defense to do if you put 2 backs out there with McCaffrey and Juszczyk, and then the receiving duo that they have, Ayuk and Samuel, and then, of course, George Kittle to make it all work. Like, do you play base? Do you play nickel? Who knows? But that could be an issue for another time, another meeting. I think the Rams needed help at running back. They're apparently on their way to a divorce with Cam Akers, though that has not been finalized yet. They should get some help at running back with their rookie out of Notre Dame, Kyron Williams, before too much longer. But I think more than anything, it's just that Christian is a unicorn, that what he can do, run and pass, his versatility, his ability to make tacklers miss is something that the Rams, I think, are sorely lacking. But they were disciplined enough to not go the full distance to compete in the bidding war with San Francisco.
If Akers and the divorce is going to happen, what do the Rams do in terms of running the football this Sunday against the Niners?
Yeah, I think you'll see a heavy dose of Darrell Henderson. I think the most recent win over Carolina was an example of how they can get their receiving core involved in the running game, and I know the San Francisco 49ers saw a healthy dose of that from the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't know whether the Rams can duplicate Andy Reid's, speed to the perimeter, screen game blueprint to keep Bosa at bay. But I think there'll be elements of that based off of what the Chiefs put down on film and what the Rams would have hoped to have done anyway.
JB, what's going on with the pursuit of Odell Beckham? Where do you think he ends up?
I think there's a lot of other markets where I would rather put my wagers than trying to decide what Odell Beckham is going to do with his decisions and his future. I think that's pretty risky business, but I think if he does choose the Rams, it's a variety of factors. One, he loved it here. He's familiar with the coaching staff and the scheme and the personnel. I believe that the team doctor did his most recent surgery, so all those things are going in the Rams' direction if they stay competitive and if they look like a contender if and when Odell Beckham Jr. is ready to play again this season. But what I can't speak to is the interest or the desperation level of other suitors. If someone is willing to pay him significantly more or give him multi-year security because they think he is a missing piece to their championship run, again, not to draw a total comparison to the Christian McCaffrey situation, but I think there's a limit to how far the Rams or any other team are willing to go.
You mentioned stay competitive, and it feels almost like an oxymoron in this year's NFC where even Carolina is still competitive. What's the feeling around the Rams in terms of where they are from a competitive standpoint as far as this game being a must-win, an important game, or how this one factors into a pretty weird NFC this year?
Yeah, that to me feels more sentimental and moral and emotional than it does mathematical. And I think that's true of San Francisco, too. Like, both teams probably can't call this a must-win because it's not yet Halloween, but it's a can't-lose for various reasons. San Francisco not wanting to take a 3-game streak into their bye. Of course, the Rams not wanting to lose an 8th consecutive regular season game to their rival. All those sorts of factors. But when you do look at the NFC state right now, it's pretty flat. There's a couple of teams playing well out of the East, but other than that, not a lot to write home about. And it depends how much I think you're buying into what Geno Smith and Pete Carroll and the Seahawks are doing. But there's plenty of room on the playoff bubble right now in the NFC, even for the team that loses this game on Sunday. I really believe that. And when you look at the Atlanta Falcons, sub-500, now the 4 seed in the NFC coming out of the South, there's clearly a lot of work still to be done.
JB Long is the voice of the Rams, joining us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. JB, gosh, looking up and down that conference, it's fascinating, and we know some of the different idiosyncrasies of these matchups. Last year, 49er fans at SoFi became a big story. Matt Stafford's wife even talking about it on her podcast. Is there anything the Rams have done or can do with regard to trying to sort of mitigate the loss of home field advantage because of the way the crowd develops there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only one thing they can do, which is hang more banners. I think this is a generational product. I think a project, we talked about this on your show too. That was a big inflection point, I think, beating the 49ers in the NFC Championship game last year. Anecdotally, in first grade, when I dropped my son off at school, I see a lot more Rams gear than I did back in January. It's slowly changing, but that doesn't mean that the composition of SoFi Stadium is going to be noticeably different this Sunday. I think that's a much longer-term project. For now, those are elementary school students, not season ticket holders that I'm talking about and that I'm seeing on the playground.
Yeah, tomorrow, season ticket holders, though, if the Rams can do things correctly. Cooper Kupp came out and had some pretty strong comments, or maybe non-comments, about the turf at SoFi Field. Why don't they have grass? Don't you guys have sun in L.A.?
This is definitely a conversation above my pay grade, but just outside looking in, I can say a few things working against those logistics. I think 6 out of the 8 levels of SoFi Stadium are underground, including the playing surface. There's a canopy over the top of it, and there are at least 2 teams that play there on a regular basis, all of which I think would complicate matters to make that a natural grass surface. But I'll leave that to the experts, the field crew, and those who are paying the bill.
Speaking of Cooper Kupp,
I mean, go ahead and
there's where there's a will, there's a way. But yeah, it's going to cost money.
I will say one other thing too, though, is because there are some natural grass surfaces, including your own there at Levi Stadium, and those have also been pointed to as injury causation. I think there was an instance in Arizona early this season where the grass that they grow outside in the brilliant Arizona sunshine and then roll in had been resodded recently, and was the Chiefs maybe that suffered some early season injuries there, and I think it was Andy Reid saying the grass was the reason. So there's no cure-all.
No, that's true. Yeah. People have talked about the Soldier Field surface recently as well. Like there are issues on all levels. But speaking of Cooper Kupp, JB, everybody seems to know he's getting the ball so much, and so there's no surprise there. But where else? If you're the 49er defensive coordinator, who else scares you on the offense?
Well, I do think that his matchup with Jimmy Ward, who's playing out of position, and I've kind of read the local coverage there of what he's going through with San Francisco right now. It's fascinating and has tremendous bearing on Sunday's outcome, especially because Ward, I think, had 3 interceptions of Stafford last year, including a pick 6. So that, to me, is one to watch. I think the return of Van Jefferson that we mentioned previously is huge. It is really the way that they drew it up when they added Allen Robinson in free agency, that would be the trio that would give opposing defenses problems until they were maybe able to secure Odell Beckham's services again. You'll see a lot of Henderson out of the backfield. You'll see some Ben Skoranek, who does his best Kyle Juszczyk impersonation at times, a receiver who can line up in the eye, and that's where the Rams have had their best rushing success so far. And then Tutu Atwell has been their fastest player, their first pick from a couple of drafts ago. Very limited opportunities, only one deep ball catch so far this season. But after seeing what the Chiefs did to this 49ers defense, I wonder if he won't be part of their game plan to try and stretch San Francisco horizontally and vertically.
Does Sean McVay have a chip on his shoulder as it pertains to the regular season lopsided nature of this rivalry, or did the banner that you guys hung kind of offset that from being a part of the tableau? That'd be a question that only, he and some truth serum could really probably answer to. But I'll say this from my experience with Sean, whether it's the lowly Carolina Panthers or the rival San Francisco 49ers, he's never lacked for energy and focus and motivation. So I think it'd be tough for me to say that he went to work, he went to the lab any harder on this one than he did any other prior game this season.
JB, just looking at the matchups always, I mean, you point out that it was such a moment for the Rams to kind of get over the hump and do it in the playoffs last year. But be that as it may, looking at this matchup through the years, I wonder why do you think the 49ers have had such success over the last 3-4 years in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm obligated to point out that the Rams have been the better team over the course of the current coaching staffs, right?
Right.
Yeah, the records, the accomplishments, the Rams have had the better of it in every regard except the head-to-head results, which are immensely important and consequential. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to gloss over that. But, I think as a foundational level, it's on me to say that and replicate that. As to the why, look, in layman's terms, I think the physicality, the toughness, winning the trenches has more often than not been the theme. The way that the 49ers are committed to their running game and the way that they've done it, no matter if they're missing Trent Williams or McGlinchey or both tackles, we've seen them beat the Rams with their running game, regardless of who's been up or down on the injury report. And I think they are a good matchup. I think they bring it each and every time. And most recently, I think the Rams have collided with the 49ers when they are in pure desperation mode. And again, because of what we said earlier, would falling to 3-5 be a death knell for the San Francisco season? No, they didn't last year. They dug out of that pit last year. But every time the Rams connect with the 49ers of late, San Francisco's been on a losing streak or has had a losing record and is looking to get right against the Rams, and they have brought that commitment to the stadium. And I think LA has to be ready to match that on Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the same darn thing again. It's kind of like it feels here. It's like when the Niners really needed a victory, luckily for them, the Rams are there. And maybe that's not because it's the Rams. Maybe it's just weird timing. That's an interesting point. JB, have a great call. We always appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, enjoy your weekend, and hello to all my friends and family in the Bay Area.
Absolutely.
Thanks, JB.
JB, I know they love it too. JB Long, voice of the Rams.